It was an ordinary day, and Tai was on his way home with his childhood friend Ren. Ren practiced tennis in the school's tennis club and was insisting Tai to enter a club soon so his talent would not go to waste. Tai then saw a cyclist about to hit Ren at full speed. Then, he saw a girl who was drawing a magic circle, but an assassin attacked her guardian and blood dripped onto the magic circle. The guardian fought off the assassin to save his mistress. It was Tai who saved Rin from the bicycle rider, who was dumbfounded by such rashness. Abruptly, a circle of magic flared beneath Tai, sensing peril, pushing Rin out, but she clung to him and both fainted. They found themselves waking up in the meadow, with Tai making sure that Rin was safe. They tried finding their way home, but their phones were out of signal. First, he thought it was really a remote area. Tai suspected that the transportation by the magic circle took them to another world, something known to him from games. Ren wouldn't believe until they encountered a big demon horse. Tai let Ren run away by distracting the horse, thinking that one of them dying was way much better than both of them dying. In the end, when it attacked, a swordsman stepped in, and an archer and a mage finally killed the horse. The adventurers explained they would sell the horn of the demonic horse and finally realized that Tai and Ren did not fit in with their party. That night, the adventurers agreed to take Tai and Ren to another town if Tai made peace with Ren, who looked upset. Tai made Ren apologize for his thoughtless behavior and made him promise that he wouldn't think about dying for her sake. The next morning, they arrived at a bustling border town and planned to register as adventurers. They reached the guild. The magic power of Ren and Tai surprised the receptionist. Due to their immense power that could not be measured correctly, they were referred by the guild master to Linnea, a mage. Linnea took them as apprentices and tried to teach them how to control the powers within. Assassins were after the people summoned across worlds. Tai's stats were very high, above even the royal magicians. Linnea trained Tai how to raise his own self with magic. Mora was teaching Rin fire magic. Both were making very fast progress. In 3 weeks they could hunt by themselves. The demon horse met again and they finally killed him. Linnea acknowledged their growth and said they needed to leave as she couldn't maintain them forever. Ren and Tai became adventurers in hopes of finding someone to return them home. They took on missions, one of which was to investigate a bar that was connected to some thefts. They confronted suspects and apprehended the assassin, but things did not end there as more challenges emerged. Ogres attacked a fruit orchard. They suspected a young, white-haired man, by which they found out about their plot with a sorceress against them. While fighting some enemies, he encountered an ice wolf, and Tai showed his weaknesses against some enemies. The story foreshadows that more will come in their quest for survival and finding a way home. Feeling that he and Rin needed to improve their battling skills and tactics after meeting the ice wolf, after the frost beast incident, Tai came to and found Linnea there once again. She had brought him food, stating that he'd been unconscious for an entire week since he'd used up all his magical energy. When Rin and Mora first returned with him, everyone had thought he'd recover in no time. But when he did not come around after 3 days, they started to get desperate and called in Linnea. According to her, she never saw Mora that uptight before. Linnea told Tai the 2 young women were now looking into something. He rose to thank her and informed her of what had occurred in the garden. She said his opponent had utilized a red pact. That is a forbidden strategy using creature blood to gain power. It gives extraordinary might, but it is excessively savage. Tai also related his story of the wind spirit meeting him. This surprised Linnea, as it enlightened her on the cause of his forces. Meanwhile, the pale-haired man, Kasim, had gone to report Ty's mishap to his superior in the cult. His superior said that a pushover job would be coming up soon that Kasim could use to get out his frustrations. On the same note, he came over to a woman with blades, Granny, and wrote something on her hand so that Kasim could control her. The leader of the cult gathered 2 members of the guild and left. He also gave Kasim a message to deliver. Bringing the subject back to Ty, Linnea clarified that he was a type of summoner, which is a class of magic users. He would bind with one spirit in his case. How mighty he was depended on how tight this bond was. The key to using this power was how well Ty could see or hear the spirit. Spirits are creatures in this world even higher ranked than dragons.
So, like 400 years ago, people were everywhere, but they were mean and nasty. So they made this really bad weapon called darkness to end all fights. It decided humans were the worst and tried to wipe them out. And right when things seemed like they couldn't get any worse, this huge light just cracked across the sky, and out came a dragon dude with a sword. This dragon and the darkness had some insane battle that really busted up the place. The dragon wins, and everybody kinda forgot about the whole thing. Fast forward 400 years, here's this kingdom under attack by this evil wizard and his army of monsters. It's up to Yoko, the high priest's daughter, and Lutsai, some easily targeted shy kid, to help out. Apparently, the deal is that Yoko's dad taught her this special spell that can bring back a great sorcerer inside Lutsai, so it's only natural that it needed a kiss from a virgin and that Yoko couldn't get married. Lutsai had always been super weak and got bullied a lot, but because of Yoko, he was tolerated by people. Yoko wanted Lutsai to become stronger, but it was hard to. Then the princess asked Yoko to cast the spell, but Yoko refused to give the kiss. Suddenly, the evil wizard broke into the castle, and some high-ranking guys sold out the kingdom but were ruined by the monsters. The monsters were attacking Lutsai, and Yoko had no choice but to kiss him to wake Schneider, the old sorcerer in Lutsai. Schneider woke up, angry about having been sealed, but he destroyed the monsters. He said he was still Lutsai, Yoko's friend. Everyone was surprised Lutsai became Schneider. Schneider had started the Golem War 15 years ago and made sure he'd come back using forbidden magic. People begged for his help, but he only cared about Yoko. Finally, he agreed after Yoko asked him. The evil wizard, who worshipped Schneider, did not believe Schneider was back and attacked but got blasted by Schneider's power. The wizard hurled a bolt of lightning, but Schneider merely shrugged it off and scorched him with hellfire. Ignoring the thanks of the princess, Schneider asked Yoko how she was feeling, and then vanished again. Yoko followed him, finding out that he held revenge against her dad and wanted world domination, saving only Yoko. Though he was a demon, he was really appealing to Yoko. He noticed this and kissed her, thus making Schneider return to Lutsai. Yoko thought her kiss could restore Schneider to life once more. News of their master's death reached the wizard's disciples and they dispatched a scouting spy to track down Schneider's assassin. That same night, Yoko had a nightmare of Schneider ruling the world. Waking up, she found Lutsai sleeping beside her. The next morning, with a dark cloud approaching, Yoko's dad surmised that they might need Schneider again. Another kingdom succumbed to the sorcerers and monsters marching towards their country. It was then that the high priest realized that it was the bringing back of ancient darkness that the enemy desired. A hydra attacked the city, at which point Yoko's dad told her to wake Schneider. She kissed Lutsai, and Schneider came back. Schneider summoned a fire barrier and, claiming to owe Yoko, rescued the king and princess. He intended to kill her dad but tried to summon his lightnings, blocked by the high priest's barrier that sealed his own powers. Calling forth a golem to fight Schneider with his blood, he fought against a hydra another sorcerer controlled. Schneider burned up the sorcerer but not before he had been bitten by the hydra. Yoko then realized that with her kiss, she could control Schneider. One of the enemy leaders saw Schneider was present and readied himself. Meanwhile, back at the palace, with the enemies nearing, Yoko did not want herself or Lutsai to become pawns. Children teased Lutsai, and while apprehensive about his two personalities, Yoko defended him. That night Gar and ninjas kidnapped Yoko. She was whisked away by Gar to the high priest's coerced hand. The princess wanted to awake Schneider along with herself, but the king did not agree. The high priest was in the hope that Schneider could be manipulated by Lutsai. The woken Schneider aimed at his goals but finally agreed to save the princess. He had to pass the traps and monsters set by Gar and rescue the princess. Gar tortured and stripped Yoko. Schneider got angry with Gar and attacked him. The long-range attacks of Gar surprised Schneider and it turned into big battle. Schneider cut off Gar's hand and prepared for the final fight. Even after all the taunts by Gar, he did not lose control and continued to focus. Spells of both of them fought against each other, destroying the hideout. Schneider saw the possibility of change in Gar and Yoko scolded him, which further amused Gar.
Ling God is a walled realm. That wall protects and maintains the land inside, but it is also worshipped as a god. This world has two nations on either side of the wall. One worships wisdom as the empire, and another, valor as the republic. One fateful day, the republic's supreme oracle, Subai, had a vision of an omen of the phoenix that would fall close to the empire's frontier. He, therefore, advised Commander Rin to ask for permission from the king to invade the place. However, General Kai, who had earlier anticipated the worth of the treasure, set his troops to fight before the arrival of the phoenix. They arrived just in time when the treasure landed and revealed several rings whose functions were yet to be discovered. Just as Kai was to lock up treasure, the Empire's forces showed up to take it. Subai still had faith that Kai could handle what was going on. Kai ordered his troops to retrieve one of the rings on the pile of treasure. The rings would give the wearer armor gone. Despite the fact that his opponents were going to attack him 4-on-1, Kai, believing the robots were contraptions holding their users' souls, was certain they did not stand a chance. He quickly sent them off, only for another to turn up in no man's land. Subai told Kai to go back while he personally collected the second sign, ready to face the king's wrath if he had to. The sign ended up in a poor mountain village inhabited by cowboys who lived in squalor. Subai and Ren arrived just as the villagers, thinking the metal held food, heated it up. A young man emerged from the sign, scaring the villagers. They had been told that their world ended at that wall. The young man, whose name he could not recall, said he was from outside the wall. The villagers laughed it off, but Subai thought maybe there really was life outside their world. Just then, a thief in search of the heavenly treasure attacked, and the protagonist, much to his chagrin, as he was naked, was identified as the treasure. The blue-haired girl, being a sheriff in that village, enwreathed a ring of shape-shifting to transform and fight back. Though the thought of thief made him believe that he gets stronger as his enemy runs away, made him strong. Thrashed by everyone's words, the protagonist turned into an iron box and found a ring, whirred into a powerful robot and killed the thief. Impressed with the amount the protagonist could endure, Subai asked him questions about life on the other side of the wall, but there was nothing the young man could remember. Intrigued by this fact, Subai offered to help the protagonist out of the wall, but he first needed to rest for a few days. The villagers, now that the blue-haired girl had been saved, became interested in knowing more about the protagonist, who had fitted into the village by then. The sheriff, Atli, furnished him with clothes, but the village tailor built him a temporary home with the promise of a larger one should materials become available. Ella, the village hunter, was distrustful of the newcomer and took him hunting not just to feed him but to show him their hard life in the hope that he would leave. It was believed that he would bring danger to them with the war between the Empire and the Republic. Meanwhile, Subai and Rin used the king's forged seal to uncover the mysteries of the world. This thief, defeated by an Empire soldier, reported back, while the world-loving princess of the Empire wanted to avoid bloodshed and sought Arrow to be found. Soon, soldiers came demanding Arrow's capture. He was, however, absent. Atli and Ella were forced into battle for the sake of defense of the village, and then the protagonist transformed to join in. Subai got to know from ancient texts that Arrow was a guardian from beyond the wall. Waking, Arrow found the villagers, fearing his intentions, had taken his ring. They believed handing him over would ensure their safety, but Atli, grateful for his help, argued for his release. The following morning, bent on surrendering Arrow to the president, the villagers boarded the ship, however, but realized that they had been tricked and so stole a ring to free Arrow, who would lead them in fighting back. Subai reported to the king, proposing to handle Arrow and the ship personally. Years ago, Kai and Subai, sold as children, shared a dream to transform their nation. With the ship now a threat to both countries, they focused their attention on the wall and establishing a new life. The Republic soldiers arrived to attack, led by the king. Arrow and Atli assumed a posture of defense. Subai, who was initially an ally, utilized mercenaries to probe Arrow's strength. Smelling rebellion, the Empire began preparing for war while the village did. This created friction with Subai's betrayal of the Republic and his interest in the world beyond the wall. Confronted with Kai, now an adversary of great might, Subai sought to bargain with him, exposing their shared past and differing dreams. With the fate of the ship uncertain, the villagers decided to venture outside the wall and find a new life, symbolically opening their world to hope.
It was the remains of an ancient city, lost to the earth over 500 years ago, that researchers had been excavating. The explosion ripped through the ground, creating a massive rift in space and time, opening up into a gateway in another realm of monsters and demons. This other realm has several islands that have different leaders and denizens who populate them. A few humans are chosen to be teleported into this parallel universe to fight the demons. Then, each of these chosen ones would be paired up with a spirit guide that could help him navigate this new world, level up his skills, and assist with missions assigned. Thus, these chosen fighters would possess an aura that sets them apart from ordinary people. First, from the rift comes Jerome, a spirit guide in ball of fire form, who scans the city for some unclaimed player. Eventually, he senses a bright red light emanating from one of the windows of Lynn's apartment. Jerome slips through the window to get a view of his target. Inside is Lynn, immersed in his digital art, and he doesn't notice Jerome's presence. A huge golden portal suddenly opens, and Lynn gets sucked through to the other realm known as the Rift. He thuds onto the rocky ground with great force. His surroundings were desolation in stark contrast to the world he had known: red skies, poisonous flora. As Lynn gets up, he faces a monster with a sheep's head but with a man's body. Confident that he is a main character who doesn't die, he is ready to fight, but this is easily broken as the monster hits him, sending him flying across the screen. Fortunately, in time, a seasoned player named Hang arrives and distracts the monster. Equipped with a staff, Hang summons flaming blue dragons to attack the beast but cannot quite finish it off. Lynn panics and tries to run for his life. As he is running, Jerome sends a flame that moves beside him and changes into the legendary demon-slaying sword known as Excalibur. This draws the monster's attention to the sword. Hang further continues fighting it, but the monster turns attention to Lynn, who climbs a tree desperately to get away. By pure accident, Lynn slips and lands on the head of the monster, with Excalibur through its skull, killing the monster. This win of an uncoordinated apprentice, like Lin, is unexpected to the community of chosen ones. Back in the actual world, Lin woke up lying on the ground at the bus stop with a friendly dog nearing him. On top of this dog's head sat Jerome. Overjoyed, he takes Jerome back to his apartment, but his antics have everyone else believing he has gone crazy. Jerome despises being called cute and claims he is actually a sacred beast, whose job it was to strengthen each world's seals in order to keep back the demon god and all of his monsters. With that barrier having recently exploded, that left only the chosen ones to fight back against the demons. Feeling elated at the opportunity to become a hero, Lin dreams passionately of his future life. However, his joy is short-lived as he receives a call from his boss, summoning him back to work. Just before he goes back, he signs a contract for joining the chosen ones, to remain anonymous and not to let any harm reach the ordinary people. Lin continues with his duties. He begins to notice many spirit guides in the city. He assists an elderly lady to cross the street and saves a girl who turned out to be another player. He rushes to save two turtle spirit guides standing in the middle of the road, only to find them unaffected by the traffic lights. He picks up a caterpillar spirit guide and warns of poisonous gas in panic. The erratic behavior is all caught on video. He ends up being declared insane and is summoned to court. At the court, he is charged with generating mass panic and heavily fined, but he claims not to have known the rules. It is discovered by the judges that he could have been mistakenly put into the fighter's position because of a software error. Furthermore, it is discovered that his spirit guide once helped defend the interworld barriers. Amused by this, they release him without any punishment. It reaches the public what Lin's identity is as a fighter, and people are extremely incredulous that a boy who defeated a key monster could turn out to be such a troublemaker. As Lin is about to leave, flares of blue light transport him and others to the landmass of the southern continent of the ancient world. The environment was picturesque, with traditional houses and shops. Lin goes to meet other fighters, one of them is Hang. There he learns how missions have recently been very troublesome at the university. People in the crowd recognize him as Knight's Sword. That makes everyone turn their heads in his direction and compare him with Skeleton Jenny, the strongest fighter, who killed a 4-star monster and acquired the highest ranking light, gold, during the swirling prophetic Jade trial. Eager to prove himself, Lin tries the trial and ends up miserably, ramming into the Jade Stone. Instead of going away, he resorts to magic from Excalibur and creates cracks in the stone, leaving the observers in a startled state. Moved by this unique achievement of Lin's, the director puts him on the difficult task of investigating the disturbances happening at Moonshine University. Though Jerome protests that Lin should be off slaying demons rather than investigating a trash can, Lin is convinced that somehow, in this scenario, the retrieval of the missing ancient sword is key to restoring balance. It's while the thief of that sword is busy trying to repair it that the sword's magic accidentally unleashes a giant crab monster. Lin fights back against it but is quickly overpowered. Just in time, the skeleton Jenny appears and incinerates the beast with flaming hands.
Our story starts with two girls running for their lives. As the scene shifts, we find that there are two mechas following the two girls. As those two girls reach the edge of the mountains, the mechas quickly follows them. As the two reaches the edges, the mechas aim at them. And when they shoot them, they both falls in the pit, separating them. After that, scene shifts to Britannia Empire, who Lelach 6 Britannia, making the empire long forgotten, After this we get to see the brother of Lilach, who actually had small islands which had a lot of armed forces, and after Lilach destroyed the empire there was peace in Japan, but not for long, as certain people again formed forces to attack the Japan again and destroyed the peace established. We get to see island known as Area 11. In the vicinity we see a truck in which they are trying to get information. As the sea shifts we get to see red-haired guy who is shooting the terrorist who known as 11 one by one. After this the Kirkwayne forces knew about the incident and stops at fuel station for refueling, but saw a guy who is bullying a child. Kirkwayne stops him. After he introduced himself the guy was shocked and said sorry. After that they took the girl with them to a safe place. After that we got introduced to Namel's army, decided for help, Kirkwayne force of Ash and Rose as they both traveled to dispose of their items to not get caught. They were introduced to a complete stranger. As they introduced themselves, the stranger tells them to follow him. As they follow they showed a photo of Kirkwayne brother, who in the name of anti-terrorism killing innocent people and killed the stranger's family. After that they finally decided to kill the brother and form a operation. As their plan undergoes, they find the Kirkwayne getting somewhere in the car, as we also saw his big brother playing chess in his castle, as he saw something lying on the ground. As it reveals itself they were the Ash and Rays, planning to infiltrate their base, as they threaten both the brothers and run for their base. As Kirkwayne get ready in his robot, and on the other hand, Rose infiltrates the base and get to the Kirkwayne while Ash was engaged in the fight. Rose was beating the Kirkwayne in chess. After Ash beat the small brother and Rose beat the bigger one, it was over for Kirkwayne as Rose uses her G's to finish off Kirkwayne. After that they brought the kid to the base. In a far sight, we got introduced to the former leader of Imperial Guards, Ice Wall, and they planned to attack on our nameless organization after they killed Kirkwayne. As speaking of nameless, we got to see Ash and Rose as they plan to infiltrate the base and rescuing Rose's sister. As the plan goes on, Rose and Ash finally infiltrates the base. As Rose uses her G's power to unlock the door and finally meets her sister and promise her to take revenge of the Imperial Guards, but firstly they have to escape the base in order to make a plan on revenge. The latter does not last long as they are surprised by Wise Queen Catherine, who kidnaps Sakura thinking she is Sakuya. Between them soon enough we see intense actions starting with major battle between Ash and Arnold. This fight reveals more about his past and true identity as he is known as Ash Phoenix. In parallel with this event, Sakuya continues her mission of rescuing General Kuroda, leader of 7 Shining Stars, while Arnold gets defeated by Ash in an epic combat sequence. After this they all had party together. As they were enjoying, Rose was at the roof. Ash came. She asked him about his past and what is his purpose. When he tells her everything, she was disappointed and Ash left the conversation. After this we sees the Neo-Britannian army fighting against 7 Shining Stars troops, and in this battle is Heath, a member of Neo-Britannian force who confront Ash and his nightmare. When he loses to Ash, Heath's colleagues treat him with contempt, making him feel humiliated and belittled. The stress on Heath builds to an unbearable level where he points a gun at himself, portraying how toxic the environment is in the Neo-Britannian army. Consequently, Rose disguised as Sakuya takes a break from all this mess and becomes Sakuya for some time being. In addition, Ash does not do much except spending time at home taking care of his pets. Now located in more relaxed environs, Sakuya talks to people inside Sumari Cafe. It is then that those more involved in her rebellion are introduced. Also scheming with Natalia, who is one of Emperor's trusted ones, is Princess. By chance, goons attack a waitress whom Ash rescues and she takes him to her place of work where Raspberry, Sakuya, wearing fake glasses, waits tables. Within seconds after meeting her, Ash falls in love immediately with her upon seeing her. Sakuya learns more about Ash during this time and began seeing him as being more talkative and friendlier than before. In one flashback, it is revealed that Lilach, now LL, bestowed upon Sakuya the Jace. The Neo-Britannian Empire is in a state of political turmoil according to the episode. Noland assassinates the Emperor and Sakura, who pretends to be Sakuya, becomes the 101st Empress of the Britannia Empire. Noland's influence continues to grow and his terror techniques become scarier as he manipulates events to retain control over them. The end of this episode shows Sakuya coming to terms with her errors and realizing how her actions have affected Ash, which sets up future episodes for more dramatic scenes. In wake of Emperor Callus's death, Sakuya and Rose take stock of the delicate political climate. Sakuya, under the guise of Princess Sakura, becomes the head of state, but it's evident that Norland von Lunelberg along with his Einbergs are the real rulers. This new deal triggers doubts from the 7 shining stars, but Sakuya plays her negotiating cards well. She carefully selects Haruka as a pilot for the advanced new nightmare called Keisetsu so as to avoid internal wars and displays her ability in North-South conflict resolution. Simultaneously, Norland's true menace comes out clearly as he seems to pull strings from abroad, although no one quite knows what he is. It appears that Heath and Einberg was killed suspiciously, which hints at some foul play taking place. In this episode, Leelach of the Rebellion, various characters make their big appearances. For instance, Cornelia attends a meeting with Black Knight's top brass and it is disclosed that Leelach, now known as LL, gave Sakuya her Geese. Meanwhile, Leelach is seen with Cece on their quest for fragments of Geese. On top of that, Nina, bearing a Black Knight named Sakai in company, brings an anti-nuclear device to 7 shining stars, indicating her road to salvation. There are only 4 episodes came out of this series. If you want more of them, please subscribe my channel, Manhwa Recap.
Speechless guy is always studying in the library as he wants to be. One day, when he was in a library, he went over to get a book off the shelf when suddenly a bright light appeared on top of him. He seemed to be visibly confused at this occurrence, but before he could do anything, he was sucked inside of it, and the very next moment, he was falling down from the sky in a totally unknown land. He is super scared, thinking that he will die falling from this height, but surprisingly, he lands softly on the ground without any injuries. He shakes the dizziness off and notices that he is surrounded by a bunch of hooded figures looking intently at him. This scares him a bit, but he puts on a brave face and decides to bluff that he is totally in control of the situation. The hooded figures escort him to what looks like a courtroom to him. He looks around and spots people wearing very dated uniforms. Some of them aren't even men, but it looks like they are a mix between animals and humans. The king, who was sitting on the throne up until now, gets up and welcomes him to his kingdom, calling Soma the hero, which confuses him. The king thanks him for answering his call, but this makes Soma mad as he never answered any calls, and he was more or less yanked from his place without his permission and brought here. The king is taken aback and asks him not to be angry at them, as they have an explanation. He explains that he is currently in a world that has witches and wizards, dwarves and elves, knights and dragons that roam the world freely. Some time ago, however, a small void opened in the northern part of their continent, and suddenly a huge horde of demons started coming out of it. All of the surrounding kingdoms started combining their strength to fight against the demons, but it turns out that the demons seem to be innumerable, and no matter how many of them are killed, they always seem to be replaced immediately. But sadly, their kingdom doesn't have inexhaustible manpower, and hence, they cannot keep fighting such a losing battle. Soma looks at the king and tells him that there is no way he's going to fight against the demons. The king seems embarrassed, so one of his ministers comes forward and explains to him that one of the kingdoms, known as the Chaos Empire, is the strongest of them all and has been constantly asking them for monetary support, and if they don't offer monetary support, the empire has threatened them with war. Soma asks the minister about how he is tied up with all of this, and the minister looks down sheepishly and tells him that they have decided to summon a hero and then offer it to that empire, as it is the only way they won't have to pay any money, as they don't have any money. Soma is shocked beyond any measure and blankly looks at the king, who looks embarrassed. He asks the king whether this was the plan to call a goddamn hero to his kingdom, and he nods solemnly. Soma starts thinking about what he could do to escape this situation and realizes that there is no way he can run away from here, as he will probably be caught very easily, and it might become troublesome for him. He decides that he will deal with this situation logically and realistically. He looks at the king and asks him whether he knows what will happen to him once he turns him over to the Chaos Empire. The king shakes his head and says that he has no idea what would happen to him, which is definitely not what Soma wanted to hear. He asks him whether he at least knows that he will be safe when turned over to them, or if they will immediately kill him for some reason or other. They don't answer that question, which makes him realize that he cannot leave it up to luck and decide to take matters into his own hands. He looks at the king and asks him about the last time a hero was summoned in this kingdom, and the minister replies that the last time a hero was summoned was 500 years ago, and since then, people have been trying but can't summon anyone. Soma immediately presses the matter and asks them what will happen after they turn him over. Will they stop demanding things things from them afterwards. This shuts everyone up as they realize that they cannot keep summoning heroes to hand them over. The king looks confused, and Soma decides that this is the moment that he has to use to get out of this problem. He looks at them and tells the king that he will help them get out of this situation as he is the chosen one, the hero who will lead their kingdom to revolution. Everyone is shocked at this, but Soma tells the king that he is going to check all of the financial records and set everything straight so that their kingdom can start generating more money and doesn't collapse under its own weight. Everyone rejoices at this amazing speech, and the king decides to give it a shot. They all go inside the room, and Soma realizes that he doesn't really have any plans as of now, but decides to simply take the account of all the finances from the king and the minister. So for 3 days and 3 nights continuously, they discussed all the finances for the kingdom, and he finally is able to come up with some sort of solution. The next day, they all gather in front of a massive audience, where Soma is very sleep deprived and looks like she can sleep at any moment. The king stands beside him and declares that he, the king, has decided that Soma is more fit to rule the kingdom, and starting now, he is transferring the kingship to Soma. Everyone is shocked at this revelation, but none more than Soma, who had no idea this was coming. On top of that, the king proudly declares that to make his claim to the throne even stronger, he has decided to marry his only daughter, Liz, to Soma. Just like that, within moments, Soma's entire life was changed, and he was given the task of changing the lives of all the subjects residing in his kingdom. He sits down in his chambers and starts working on a room full of paperwork without any breaks or sleep because of the sheer volume of work. Suddenly, he hears the door open and a beautiful young woman dressed in a military outfit barges in without saying anything. Soma is so tired that he doesn't even look up from his work and asks her whether she is a learned person and knows how to read and write. This takes Liz by surprise, who heatedly answers that she's a very learned person. Soma then asks her some basic math questions without looking them up, and when she is able to answer them, he asks her to help him deal with this paperwork. Liz walks up to him and announces that he is talking to the daughter of the former king. This makes Soma look up from his paperwork, and he asks her why she is wearing a military outfit. She explains that she always had a knack for combat and wanted to help on the front lines, so she enrolled herself in the military. She asks him what he did with her father, as there is no way her father would give up kingship. Soma lets out a deep sigh and tells her that he was summoned to this weird place, and he only wanted to escape being sent to the Chaos Kingdom, but her father got impressed by him and made him the king. He reassures her, however, that it won't be for long, as he doesn't want to be king and just wants to go back to his own place. He tells her that he will stay in this kingdom for 2 or 3 years, till the kingdom regains its footing and gets more stable financially. He also tells her not to worry about the engagement, as she can cancel it anytime she wants to. Liz seems impressed after hearing about his humility and decides to talk to him more cordially. He explains to her that he is already working on getting more money and has sold all the useless jewels and treasures from the kingdom's vault, as their country needs food that people can eat and not jewels that are locked in some vault right now. Liz seems horrified and tells him that a lot of those treasures are ancient artifacts that are basically extremely precious. Soma calms her down by showing her a list of items that he has sorted and how he hasn't sold any national heritage items or any dark magic items. He has only sold basic jewelry in gold and silver. Liz seems to be more relaxed now and asks him about his next plans. Soma replies that he isn't going to send money to the Chaos Kingdom as of now, as the people living in this kingdom are still hungry and need something to eat. Liz suggests that instead of sending the money straight to the Chaos Empire, he can use it to strengthen their own military. Soma thinks for a moment and realizes that she is right. If they give the money to the Chaos Empire, they will just keep asking for more, but if they invest it in their own military, they might be able to stand up to them and retake their.
The story begins as we see a band of red ogres attacking a town. The people cower in fear, and as the monsters approach, a dragon can be seen flying overhead. A man on the dragon's back chants, and hundreds of paper talismans descend onto the ogres. A talisman stops in front of each ogre, and there is a devastating chain of explosions that destroys even a part of the town. One of the ogres survive, but it gets eaten by the dragon with a single bite. We learn that this is the world's strongest exorcist, who sought to be the greatest, but his search for power led the imperial court to fear him, and in the end, they betrayed him, even sending his favorite disciple to oppose him. In his final moments, he wishes he was more cunning, casting a secret reincarnation spell and swearing to do things better in his next life. We then meet a boy named Seika in the middle of a magic circle. His father performs a ritual to examine his power, but none of the elemental stones light up, meaning he has no magical power, and his brother Glai mocks him for being an embarrassment. We learn that he was reborn into a new world, where magic is completely different from his past spiritual arts. Despite not having any mana, he senses great spiritual energy from his body. We see Seika as he gathers some leaves. paper is too expensive, so he creates shikigami from the leaves instead. The leaves transform, with some turning into mice, and the others into crows. His brother Glai suddenly approaches, asking what he is up to. His brother looks down at him, threatening to hit him, but Seika's crows defend him. Their older brother, Luft, rushes over and chases off the crows. Noticing that Seika is unarmed, he is a little suspicious, but takes Glai to get treated. We see that Seika is learning about his new world on his own. He is the son of a mistress, which gives him lower status, so he is generally ignored at home. We see him working hard, as he makes his own paper, and is finally able to make his paper talisman. He gets a knock at the door, and we meet a young maid named Aoife, who returns his coat, which his brother had thrown out. Glai saunters in to taunt them, telling Aoife to get back to work, and bragging that he'll be going to the Imperial Magic Academy. As he is bragging, their father shows up, saying they need to get back to their training. Before they leave, Seika asks to join them. We see Luft as he casts his spell, creating a wind blade, and blasting through a large stone. Glai also shows off his magic, shooting a fireball at the target. Glai is proud of himself, and dares Seika to give it a try, believing that Seika has no power. Seika reluctantly takes the wand. On one hand, he doesn't want to reveal his power too soon, but on the other hand, he decides that a show of force might deter his brother from continuing to harass him. Using his spiritual arts, he fires a blue fireball, which completely destroys the target. The family is stunned at his power, and the fact he cast his spell without an incantation. Glai tries to take credit, saying it was his leftover power in the wand, but their father acknowledges Seika's abilities for the first time. Seika asks if he can also study magic, but his father refuses, saying it would be pointless, because there has never been a person born without magic that has become successful. However, he does give Seika a tutor, which gives him access to books, and Seika spends all his time trying to learn more about magic, even spying on his brother's lessons to keep up. As the years pass, Seika finally finishes his talisman. We learn that in his past, he would defeat demons and capture them, sealing them in another dimension to call upon later. He believes that even in this world, he would be able to summon his servants. As a test, he attempts to call on his most well-behaved demon. A door appears, and a young girl emerges. Seika doesn't quite recognize her, but the girl jumps on him, overjoyed to be reunited with him. The girl is introduced as Yuki, and she suggests that her appearance is different because his spiritual energy is lower than in the past. Seika is glad this was a success, and Yuki wonders how she can help him. Seika tells her it was just a test, and that she can't be seen by anyone else. Yuki transforms into a tiny wolf, saying she is sick of the other dimension, and insists on staying with him. The next day, we see Glai as he yells at Aoife for spilling water on him. But his tone changes, and he suggests that she can find a way to make it up to him. Seika comes to her rescue, saying he has business with Aoife. His brother gets annoyed with him, trying to punch him, but Seika easily stops him, and his brother storms away. Aoife thanks him, and ends up leading him outside, showing him an injured bunny. She wonders if they could save it, and Seika tells her to turn away so he can focus. He takes a hair from the creature, and using his talisman, he successfully heals it. Aoife praises his talents, and Seika can see that she is also special. Aoife gets nervous, but Seika can tell that she can see the spirits of animals. Hearing that he can also see the spirits, Aoife reveals she can actually see the elemental spirits. But she finds it strange that those spirits seem to actively avoid him. He asks Aoife if she can command these spirits, and she remembers one time when the wind spirits were taking her laundry, but she yelled at them, and they seemed to go away. Having studied this ability in his past, Seika can see Aoife's potential,
and offers to teach her about magic. Aoife says she doesn't have the mana to use magic, but Seika tries to teach her by summoning a soul flame and telling her to banish it. She tries asking it nicely and has no luck, but she eventually loses her temper, insisting it disappear, and the flame vanishes. Although she is weak, Seika can see she will be a great ally in the future. They become friends, and secretly train together from time to time. They continue to train over the next year, throughout all the seasons. On Seika's 12th birthday, there is no celebration as usual, and his father isn't even around. He tries not to let it bother him, and surprisingly his brothers approach him with wooden swords. Glai, as usual, reminds him of his unworthiness, and tells him his only option in life is to join the army. Luff clarifies, and says that they want to help him learn how to fight with a sword. Suddenly, the mates warn them that a monster is headed toward the house and their father is away. Seika can sense that it's coming, as we see in the forest, the head of a giant elder newt emerging. Dial runs off terrified, and Luff tells everyone to find safety, but Seika heads outside, and we see that the beast is locked onto Aoife. Seika rushes to help, but as the monster attacks, it gets repelled by a flame. Seika is impressed Aoife managed to command the flame, and he proceeds to lure the beast away from the house. It lunges at him, as everyone looks on in terror, but using his spiritual arts, he shoots a poison blast into its face. The beast falls, rendered completely disabled by the poison, and Seika prepares to tame it. Everyone is amazed at the feat, defeating the elder newt with a single attack, and they applaud his victory. He turns and waves, glad that his family finally seems to appreciate him, and he hopes that this will be the start of the life he had dreamed of. But that's where
Our male protagonist dreams of sinking into an endless abyss. Suddenly, he hears a cry for help and wakes up to find himself in a prison cell near a hole in the wall. A girl is calling for help, informing him of a spiked wall moving closer at regular intervals. He tries to break the window to escape, but it proves too difficult. The main door can only be opened from the outside. Initially, he suspects the girl might be his captor and shouts at her, but soon realizes she is also a victim. Noticing she has an axe, he suggests she use it to break her window and escape. However, she doesn't have a window, so he asks to borrow the axe to escape and then rescue her. She insists he swear an oath, or they'll both die. He agrees and swears, "I, Ming Yuan, swear I won't leave you behind and escape alone. If I do, may I die a gruesome death." Only then does she give him the axe. Unfortunately, the hole is too small and jammed to fit the axe through. She tries to widen the hole but discovers it's made of super hard granite. The girl breaks down and cries helplessly. Ming Yuan asks her to be quiet so he can think. She laments about never having had her first kiss, explaining that she had just dozed off on a train and woke up on this iron bed. Hearing about the iron bed, Ming Yuan asks her to pass him a bed leg so he can try to open the window and rescue her through the rotting wooden roof. She reluctantly trusts him and hands over the bed leg. Ming Yuan manages to pry open the window and climb out just before the spiked wall blocks the window. We learn the girl's name is Su Jin. She once went mountain exploring with friends. When one person accidentally fell while picking flowers, she helped bandage the wound. As the daughter of an esteemed traditional Chinese medicine doctor, she has extensive knowledge of traditional medicine. Suddenly, two other friends arrive to inform her that their original way down the mountain is blocked. They now have two choices: stay and wait indefinitely for rescue or leave the injured young man behind and return before the path is completely blocked. Su Jin initially refuses to abandon the injured man, but they argue that sacrificing one is better than all dying. The injured man overhears and, lacking nobility, chooses to leave. The two friends leave half of their supplies for Su Jin and the injured man before departing with a promise to send help if they escape that night. Su Jin helps the young man's leg heal and tells him to recover quickly so they can leave. The young man falls for her and asks her to be his girlfriend if they escape, but she avoids the question and leaves to gather herbs, saying he's not really her type. She returns with several items but finds the young man gone, having taken all the supplies and left a note explaining his actions. From then on, Sujin harbors a grudge against men and assumes Ming Yuan is the same. However, when Ming Yuan breaks through the ceiling to rescue her as he swore, she is stunned, then grabs his hand joyfully, hugs him, and apologizes for cursing him. Thinking he had abandoned her, she introduces herself and asks about his job, but Ming Yuan is in shock, not knowing where they are. Ming Yuan jumps down and catches Sujin, but her weight surprises him, causing irritation. When they realize they are in a lighthouse, they use the bed leg to open a door and climb down. After a while, Ming Yuan notices a section of the stairs is missing. He takes a risk and jumps, managing to grab a ladder. He tells Sujin to jump, and he catches her successfully. However, the ladder detaches due to their combined weight, and they fall into the water. Ming Yuan uses his body to shield Sujin during the fall and loses consciousness. Sujin brings him to the surface and drags him to shore. Determined not to let him die, she finds a nearby room to avoid the rain and decides to drag Ming Yuan inside. She is worried about potential danger but concludes that resting there is the only option. Inside the room, she notices a shadow and turns on the light to find a corpse. A young man appears behind her and threatens her with a knife, demanding to know where they are and why she brought Ming Yuan there. If she lies, he threatens to make her end up like the corpse. She begs him to put Ming Yuan down first. The young man then asks her again, and she admits she doesn't know where they are, explaining they just escaped from the lighthouse and had an accident coming down, and the young man decides to question Ming Yuan, forbidding her from interfering, or he'll stab her. He steps on Ming Yuan's hand to wake him and asks for information, but Ming Yuan doesn't know who Sujin is. Sujin argues they've just met, but the young man catches her mistake and is about to stab her. Instead, he stabs between her fingers as a warning, saying next time she'll lose a finger. Seeing Ming Yuan crying like a child, Sujin suggests the fall might have caused memory loss. Her lengthy explanation irritates the young man, but he is still unconvinced. He asks why Ming Yuan would sacrifice himself to protect her, threatening to put a knife to Ming Yuan's throat if she doesn't provide an answer. Sujin asks if he's ever had friends who would sacrifice themselves for him. This convinces the young man, as he has experienced such loyalty from his own friends in the underworld. He then asks if there is any way to treat Ming Yuan, but it seems impossible for now since Ming Yuan only has memories from elementary school. Sujin examines the corpse and notices it was brought from somewhere else. The house is damp, but the corpse is burned, which is unusual. From her medical knowledge, she realizes this is not typical. She asks the young man to cut open the clothes, finding 4 numbers, 0843, which appears to be a code. The young man recalls being chased by the underworld and escaping by boat, waking up here. He suspects they were all abandoned by human traffickers. Ming Yuan recalls that he and Sujin were locked in a room with a mechanism that compressed the walls, making it improbable for human traffickers to set up everything while escaping. They suspect this might be some sort of survival game. They decide to return to the lighthouse to search for clues, but Zhang informs them that the path outside the stairs is broken and the stairs they used to descend have been blown up. Sujin discovers a piece of paper in the corpse's ear, a map of the island marked with crosses at certain lighthouses, though the meaning is unclear. Ming Yuan finds the map familiar but cannot remember why and gets a headache. Zhang suspects he's faking and is about to teach him a lesson, but Sujin intervenes. She then takes Ming Yuan to rest. He only remembers seeing someone draw the map but cannot recall clearly. Zhang allows them to rest but remains distrustful, suspecting they might be from the underworld. The next morning, Zhang wakes them up and informs them they will head to one of the crossed-out locations on the map, believing there might be some clues. Sujin is concerned as neither is in optimal condition, but Zhang is giving orders, not suggestions. He warns them that if he discovers any schemes behind his back, they will face trouble. They set out, but midway Zhang discovers a trap on the road. The spikes have bloodstains, though it's unclear if they are from humans or animals. Sujin speculates there might be more people on the island who could become allies, but Zhang dismisses her as naive. In this harsh environment with limited food, people might trample others for survival. Hence, they must remain hidden if they encounter anyone, observe first without revealing themselves, and trust no one. Zhang then orders them to find food. He believes his strength grants him the right to make decisions. After a day, Ming Yuan finds wild berries while Sujin picks mushrooms.
Su Jin lets a nearby rabbit go, but Jang does not. He kills the rabbit with a knife and leads them to a nearby cave for temporary shelter. After eating, Jang stares at Su Jin and orders her to gather dry grass to make a bed for him. He gives Ming Yuan the remaining rabbit meat and warns him not to enter the cave. Jang then reveals his true nature and attempts to assault Su Jin. Hearing her screams, Ming Yuan, despite fearing Jang's warning, rushes in to stop him. He is immediately punched, and when Jang threatens further, Ming Yuan argues that Jang is crucial for the team's offensive capabilities while Su Jin is the healer. Jang's anger boils over as Ming Yuan talks about everything as if it's a game, leading him to punch Ming Yuan again before losing interest and leaving, instructing them to continue finding food the next day. That afternoon, Jang realizes the other two are not from the underworld. While he is deep in thought, he hears a cry for help and runs back. The cry is not coming from the cave, so he heads towards the trap and sees a man running towards it. Su Jin wants to warn him, but Ming Yuan covers her mouth. The man falls into the trap, and Ming Yuan stops Su Jin because someone else is approaching. Whoever made the man run must be formidable. A native appears and finishes off the man, dragging him away. Su Jin, shocked, faints. They take her back to the cave, and Ming Yuan suspects the person they saw might be from a cannibalistic tribe. This suggests that their situation is more dangerous than they thought. Jang warns Ming Yuan to be cautious as this might just be the beginning. The next morning, Ming Yuan climbs a tree to pick coconuts when Su Jin screams because of a rat at her feet. Jang, annoyed that she's afraid of rats but not corpses, runs to her. Su Jin then needs to use the bathroom, so she goes to a corner and asks them not to follow or look. After finishing, Su Jin notices someone nearby and screams again, prompting both men to run to her. They discover two natives about to kill Su Jin. Jang wants to think of a plan but decides to act quickly. He throws his knife at the native with the hammer while Ming Yuan pushes the other native away, just as the hammer is about to strike. Suddenly, a gunshot rings out, killing the native with the hammer. The other native flees in fear. Ming Yuan rushes to Su Jin, who is terrified. A girl with a gun steps out, introducing herself as Tracy, an American police officer with a nearby group. She wants to join them but Jang questions her about her knowledge of Chinese, as she claims to have never been to China. Tracy suggests that people often resemble each other, and Jang is mistaken. She also finds it odd that despite being a good shot aiming for the native's head, her bullet hit the heart instead. Before they can discuss further, more natives arrive, forcing the group to flee. Tracy stays behind to cover them and tells the trio to wait for her at a nearby stream. Jang wants the younger ones to go first. When they reach the stream, they wait but Tracy does not show up. Jang instructs them not to reveal the map or password to anyone, as they don't know how many others might kill for this information. This is all they have, and they must protect it carefully. The three decide to work together to escape, with Jang promising to protect them, and Su Jin agreeing to follow Ming Yuan while Ming Yuan agrees to follow Jang. Ming Yuan rambles about game theories, making Jang question his sanity. They all vow to share their fortunes and misfortunes together. Later, Tracy returns, having temporarily repelled the natives but running low on ammunition. She takes them to regroup with the others, leading them to a shelter where they meet more people. A young man there thinks Tracy shouldn't be rescuing more people given her limited ammunition. Jang is annoyed.